What's up, everyone? I'm Matt with Ozark Overland Adventures. And if you've been following the channel for a little bit, especially on the build for Sully, our 2021 Gladiator Rubicon, you'll know that I've had quite a few projects in the garage that I've just kind of been putting off and finally gotten the time to tackle. I've added front and rear bumpers from JC Whitney and carparts.com. I've added new lights to the rear to fill in some dark spaces for when we're wheeling at night and to shine on the tailgate for when I'm cooking at camp and that sort of thing. And another one that I've got and I'm going to knock out today is replacing the shocks. Now I've got the Rock Crawler 3-inch X Factor lift, which has performed fantastic. I did not get the Rock Crawler shocks to go with it. I went with the Bilstein 5100s, which is, it's just a good solid shock, and I have been very happy with them. For as long as I've had it, the Bilsteins have performed great. However, I've had the opportunity to get myself a set of these, the Fox 2.0 series shocks. And I've heard amazing things about Fox shocks, and I wanted to try them. Bilstein's kind of the baseline, I think, for good performance shocks. I wanted to see if these are better. Full disclosure, carparts.com did send these to me so I could test them out just to see how they compare. They've got a wide range of shocks that you can get for your Jeep. It doesn't matter if it's a JK, a JL, JT, or just about any vehicle. But they sell Fox, they sell Falcon, and I think there's a couple other brands on there too. I can remember. But I wanted to try out the Fox 2.0s and see if all the hype is really worth it. Changing the shocks on the new JLs and JTs could not be easier. They're a pain in the butt to change on the JKs, the way they have the top shock mount done up on the spring perch. It was a horrible experience that always led to bloody knuckles. But for the JLs and JTs, they made it super simple. So I'm gonna get the tire off and 2 bolts in and out, and it should be pretty simple. Ozark Overland Adventures is proudly supported by the More Expo, the Midwest's only indoor event for adventure travel enthusiasts. Artemis Overland Hardware. They have the passion and knowledge to ensure that your next outdoor experience is more than a camping trip, it's an adventure. And Long Creek Overland, your source for Ozark Overland Adventures merchandise and more. The process for changing the shocks, you don't have to do anything with the suspension. It's just this bolt here. You will need something to hold that nut back there. And this bolt up here, and that one's captured, so you don't have to get back in there to fill it with anything. And it's just pretty simple. Comparing them side by side, you'll see the tube diameter on the Fox is a little bit bigger than the Bilstein. The shaft diameter is a little bit bigger on the Fox compared to the Bilstein. So should be a little bit stronger, should have a little bit better dampening in there, but we'll see. For some reason, when I installed these, people asked me, why did you put them on upside down? And I didn't. They actually came with the longer piece mounted up here into the bushing. That's just how the Bilsteins do it. Most of the time, the shock body is mounted up, and the piston down here is mounted to the axle, but Bilstein did theirs differently for some reason. So that's how these are going to be oriented. And they're both for up to 6-inch lifts. Now I do have like I said, a 3-inch lift, but I run longer shocks on my lift because I have progressive coils. And the progressive coils are fantastic because if you were to run a longer shock on a standard coil, that shock would allow more droop than what the coil fills up between the axle and the body, or the frame, and your spring could fall out. But with progressive coils, it's got that extra tightly wound section at the top that sitting on the spring compresses it for that first, spring dampener, and I may be using the wrong terms here. I know the concept, just maybe not how to word it correctly. Um, and so the progressive coils have a lot more stretch to them. And so I can run a longer shock, giving me a lot more articulation with a smaller lift with the progressive coil than I can with this standard coil. So that's why I am using longer shocks than what you would typically run with a 3-inch lift. And I can testify that the performance out of it is fantastic, because my Gladiator will flex over obstacles and articulate in the ruts and stuff so well. So very well. I love it. I will say the dampening on the Fox is not as stiff as on the Bilstein. I can push this piston up into the shock with less force than it takes to do it on the Bilstein. I don't know how that's going to affect ride quality until I actually get it out there, but we will see. Always use a torque wrench to torque everything on your suspension to the proper torque settings. You definitely don't want it too loose, and over tightening can also be bad because you could actually end up breaking a bolt. That's real bad. As you can see, that was pretty simple. That took less than 45 minutes to swap all 4 shocks. Now to see how well it rides. All right, I'm taking the Jeep around the block. We've got multiple speed bumps in our neighborhood. Okay. Definitely feels softer, just a hair, going over the bumps. The real test will be off-road, of course, and I'll find that out tomorrow. Curious how the shocks impact body roll, being a little softer. Be interesting. I mean, so far, they're great, very comfortable. I'm on a little stretch of highway. I'm actually taking my Gladiator to Discount Tire to have a new TPMS sensor installed. The spare tires in these things don't come with one, which sucks for rotating your 5th tire in. But anyway, so I'm heading there, so I'm on a little stretch of highway, and the shocks feel really good. They definitely feel a hair softer. They do soak up the bumps really well. I'm about to go over some rough bridge transitions, and we'll see how that goes. And that was super smooth. I'm very impressed so far. We'll see how it goes tomorrow off-road. These new Fox shocks on these dirt washboardy roads do quite amazing. They are definitely softer than the Bilsteins, so I'm not sure which one I prefer, but I'm definitely liking them for this type of stuff. There was one obstacle earlier I got kind of, pitchy, and I think the Bilsteins would have controlled that pitching back and forth just a little bit better. But flying over this washboard stuff is super smooth in these shocks. They soaked it up really well. It has now been a month since I put the Fox 2.0 Performance Series shocks on my Gladiator. And in that time, I've taken it to the Ouachita National Forests twice. I've taken it to the Ozarks twice. I have taken it to New Mexico once, and so have put probably 1,500 to 2,000 miles on them in the last month. in a lot of different environments. And I can say they perform very well. I am pleased with them. Now, the question is Fox 2.0 or the Bilstein 5100s. And this may sound like a cop-out, but it really just depends. I mean, I've used both now, and I like different things about each one of them. The Fox shocks are definitely softer in the dampening than the Bilsteins are. These are a much firmer dampening shock. And it just comes down to personal preference. I mean, when I'm on just regular dirt roads, washboard roads, that sort of thing, the Fox shocks actually allow me to not air down my tires. My normal MO is when I hit dirt, I air down at least to 20 PSI just to make it more comfortable on the washboard sections. But with the Fox shocks, I don't have to do that. I've spent entire days out in the wash taws never airing down, and it was totally comfortable. It felt great. And I really enjoyed that. The downside to the soft part is when I'm going through, maybe some deeper whoops or something like that, they definitely will allow me to bottom out more than the Bilsteins do. So it really just depends on your style. It depends on your preferences. They are both fantastic. The cost difference between the two may sway you one or the other. I definitely think the Fox is built a little tougher. It's got a thicker tube. It's got a thicker shaft. But from a maybe hardcore wheeling standpoint, I like the Bilsteins better, just because they prevent me from bottoming out and hitting the bump stops. But from a comfort level, I do really like the Fox. I definitely notice a little more body roll with the Fox. I would say that feels much more Cadillac-ish. They say, I want my rig to ride like a Cadillac. Well, then get the Fox. But if you like a firmer ride, less body roll, that sort of thing, the Bilsteins are a great choice. So anyway, I hope that information was helpful to you as you pick out your own shocks and maybe want to upgrade your rig between the two. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. Be sure and like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Check out our Patreon if you want to consider supporting us in a very tangible way. Get access to all of our GPS data. And if you really like and appreciate the content that we're putting out. LongCreekOverland.com for all of our merchandise. This is one of our newer shirts. Go away. I really like it. And I'll see you next time.